Hi everyone. Narwal's new flagship vacuum cleaner has arrived, the Narwal Freo Z10 Ultra. This machine has everything a robot vacuum cleaner needs to have these days. Let me show it to you. Stay with me. Before I start the presentation, I want to mention a few things, because this video won't be the usual 8 to 10 minutes long, but much longer than that. I'll be talking a lot more, and well, it might happen that I'll get excited about certain things. I'm only saying this because after my Z Ultra test last October, someone commented that I'm not credible enough because I get too excited, and it's obvious, it's suspiciously why I say so many good things about a vacuum cleaner, or why I seem so happy about it. Well, the thing is, anyone who knows me knows that I really love robot vacuum cleaners. I might even like them more than phones, because in recent years, robot vacuum cleaners have improved tremendously, gained a lot of new features, and I really enjoy examining them and watching them at work. So it's always a pleasure for me when I get a robot vacuum cleaner. Of course, sometimes there are disappointments too, because the test reveals that it delivers much less than what its price and the initial specifications promised. Well, that's not the case with Narwal, because when I got their first vacuum cleaner, I already liked it a lot. And when the Z Ultra arrived in October, honestly, I was blown away, because it turned out to be an absolutely amazing machine. I'll put a link up here somewhere. Check it out. I think it's worth it because I talked about a lot of things in that video as well. And there are quite a few things that haven't changed between last October's flagship and the current flagship. So between the Z Ultra and the Z10 Ultra. In today's video, I'm going to show you the base unit, and of course, I'll also introduce the docking station. I'll go over all the features of both the base unit and the docking station. I'll share all sorts of interesting details. And of course, I've also tested the device. So I did an obstacle avoidance test, a vacuuming test, and a mopping test as well. I'll be showing you these two. And of course, I'll share my opinion about the whole thing. So let's get started. I'll start with the dock because honestly, not much has changed with this dock since the previous model, the Z Ultra. Basically, we get the same dock as with the Z Ultra, which means that under the lid of this dock, you'll find a large water tank for clean water and another large water tank for dirty water. Obviously, these water tanks need to be refilled, emptied, and cleaned from time to time. By the way, the manufacturer claims you don't need to touch the vacuum cleaner for 120 days as it can work independently, which isn't entirely true, because that's only if you consider just the vacuuming. In the case of mopping, of course, you should pour out the dirty water from the tank at least every 2 or 3 days, so it doesn't start to smell. And depending on the size of your home and how intensive you set the mopping, you'll also need to refill the clean water tank. So when they say 120 days, understand that it means you don't have to empty the dust bag, because this docking station also has a dust bag. So the dust bag is located inside the machine housing here. You can see that it's quite a large dust bag. Indeed, I can imagine that you really won't need to empty it for 120 days. Now I'll switch over to the main unit for a moment, because I need to show you something important regarding the dust bag's capacity, namely that the dust container consists of 2 parts. There is the container part itself, but if you look at the bottom, you'll see there's a plastic insert inside. This plastic insert is present in the smaller Narwal machines as well, and it's also included in this one. It is replaceable. In fact, you get a spare with the machine, and you can also buy additional spares for it. This plastic part serves to compress the dirt that gets into the container during vacuuming. The significance of this is that the compressed dirt from the dust container will go into the dust bag, which means the capacity will be greater. Essentially, the dust bag will last longer than it otherwise would. So with this, the manufacturer is saving us money, that we won't have to change the dust bag too often. For a normal apartment, as I mentioned, and as the manufacturer says, you don't need to touch the machine or change the dust bag for up to 120 days. I think this was definitely important information regarding the dust bag. What else can the docking station do? Well, there's a tank up here inside it. This tank contains detergent. Then This detergent is added to the mopping water, which is needed for mopping. Mopping works in such a way that there are two mops on the bottom of the machine. I will show these later, and these mops soak and get washed in a tray down here. The vacuum backs up onto this spot and the mop gets washed in this tray. The dirt is essentially scrubbed out of the mop by these small ridges and little bumps. A very important point is that the machine does not use cold water during washing. Well, you pour in cold water, but the machine heats it up to about 60 degrees, and it will wash the mop in 60-degree water. The dog doesn't just dispense water, suck water back in, wash the mop, collect dust, and dispense detergent, but it also dries the mop thoroughly. This is actually very important because after mopping, the mop remains wet for quite some time, and then it can start to smell bad if it isn't dried properly. So the machine is capable of drying the mop. Okay, that's pretty much everything about the dog. Now let's move on to the vacuum cleaner. Well, there are some changes regarding the vacuum cleaner, although honestly, not too many compared to the previous model. If we look at the machine, we actually don't find any changes on it. In terms of size, it's exactly the same as the previous model. This applies to the diameter, the height, and everything else. If we remove the top cover, we find exactly the same thing underneath as we did with the previous model. We have a reset button, a power button, and another button that lets us send the machine back home. There's nothing else here. I've already shown the dustbin, but I'll show it again. It consists of three parts. We have a HEPA filter, a dust or dirt compactor section, and the traditional dustbin itself. This, of course, does not contain water, because with this advanced machine, the docking station already holds the mopping water. Since we're talking about a much more advanced mopping machine, this is no longer just a robot vacuum with a wiping function. This is a true mopping robot vacuum. But what makes a robot vacuum a mopping one? Well, it's the mops on the bottom. As you can see, there are two mops on the underside. These mops are triangular, and the reason they're triangular is so that as they spin, they rotate smoothly next to each other and clean as efficiently as possible. There are no streaks left between the two mops while mopping. In other words, it doesn't leave streaks. At first glance, nothing has changed here either. We get the same floating main brush that we had with the previous machine as well. The point of this is that it's only suspended on one side, meaning it has a bit of play or wobble. This is also how the guide plates are designed on it, as well as the brush part itself. And according to the manufacturer, this is good because the hair doesn't get wrapped around it, or if something does get wrapped around it, comes off easily and doesn't collect hair. We don't have to bother with cleaning hair off the brush ourselves. What is different compared to the previous model are these side brushes, because these side brushes are quite interesting. It was already noticeable with the previous model that instead of the usual three brushes, it only had two arms. However, those were fixed. With this machine, these brushes can move relative to each other so they can fold together. I hope you can see this clearly as well. According to the manufacturer, this is also to prevent hair from getting tangled up as much as possible. Moreover, they can deliver debris to the main brush very efficiently, and the main brush can then transfer it into the dustbin. Now, what's also important is that there are two very crucial things with this machine. The first very important thing is that compared to the previous model, which had a suction power of 12,000 pascals, this machine already has a suction power of 18,000 pascals. Well, that's brutal. It was already brutal. When these machines surpassed 10,000 pascals of suction power, but 18,000 pascals in such a small flat machine with a motor this size, honestly, I have to say, it's really truly mind-blowing how far we've come. And this probably isn't the end, so there will likely be even more powerful machines than this. Another very important thing is that the previous model had a little thing on the side, I call it a dead squirrel. It's like the windscreen on microphones. That furry thing, that's what they call a dead squirrel. Well, it looked exactly the same. You had to stick it onto the side of the machine, and as the machine moved, it basically wiped the edge, the wall's edge and things like that. So that's what it was good for. On this machine, there's no dead squirrel anymore. Unfortunately, I can't show it. You can only see it while it's operating. So the mops, when it's mopping, they extend out from the machine and press down onto the floor with 8 newtons of force. But that's not all. In addition, the mop that's closer to the wall, in this case, we're talking about this one, when it lifts up, it can also extend out to the side, like this. I can't really show this, nor can I easily explain it, so I'll insert here the video made by the manufacturer, and I also tried to film it myself to show how this mop mechanism works when it swings out to the side. The big significance of this is that while vacuuming, or rather while mopping, you won't get that streak next to the machine. Here you can more or less see the side of the machine, and the mop is set a bit further in, so there won't be a strip where the machine can't mop. In other words, it can mop right up to the edge of the wall, and it can even reach a little bit under a cabinet. If it can't fit under the edge of the cabinet, the mop can still reach in a bit when it turns to the side, so there will be much less area that the machine can't mop. And this is again a really, really great feature, and it's one of the biggest innovations in this machine besides the suction power. Otherwise, the device looks just like an average robot vacuum cleaner. Basically, apart from this, there isn't much else that's particularly interesting about it, except for one thing which you can see at the front of the machine. Should I show you? I'll show it like this, and I'll show it to the top camera as well. So the thing is, this machine is already equipped with artificial intelligence, and in this case, that means it has a very good obstacle detection system. The obstacle detection system works in such a way that it has 2 full HD cameras inside, and these full HD cameras, along with the laser, of course, which is on the top cover, scan the area in front of the vacuum cleaner. And what's more, with the help of artificial intelligence, they can recognize a lot of things. For example, our furniture, shoes, cables, and a bunch of other things. It even takes a photo of them. In fact, if it finds something, the photos it takes are saved in a folder in the app. For example, during the test, it took a photo of me for some reason as an interesting obstacle, even though I was just trying to record a video of it. So the point is that compared to the previous model, the manufacturer says this machine has a much more powerful, much more advanced processing unit, which can perform many more computational tasks in a given time than its predecessor. Additionally, this camera system has also improved. It sees better, so it recognizes obstacles more effectively and can identify them more accurately. This is also a very important change compared to last year's Z10 Ultra, and it's one of the main changes that the manufacturer highlights regarding this machine. Other than that, there really isn't much else. There is an infrared sensor on the side and one underneath, which of course prevents it from falling downstairs. There are the usual wheels which can get over obstacles up to 2 centimeters high. Well, that's about it. That's all you need to know about the base machine. Because the real capability isn't in this itself, but rather in the software inside and the application that comes with the machine. And now I'm going to show you this as well. In one of my previous videos, I got some criticism because what was shown in the app didn't exactly match what I was talking about at the time. So now I'll try to present this application in a way that I also explain what I'm seeing as I go. Let's see, there's plenty to look at, so let's dive into this and get started. We can see the vacuum cleaner itself. By clicking here, we can enter the main screen where we find the map, and in the bottom menu, the cleaning modes. Unfortunately, I can't click on this right now because the device isn't turned on. But it just occurred to me that I can show it on my own device since mine is turned on, and basically the same options are available there as well. So I'll show it on my own device instead. Basically not much has changed here regarding the application, since the app is the same as it was with the previous device. So if we go from the main screen to the map section, perhaps the most important thing is found down here, where we can select the cleaning mode. The cleaning mode can be vacuuming, mopping, vacuuming and mopping at the same time, or vacuuming followed by mopping. The big difference between the two, of course, is that with vacuuming and mopping, it vacuums and mops at the same time. Vacuuming followed by mopping means that it first goes around the apartment vacuuming, and when it's done, it goes around again to mop. Now, these are the two variations, and of course there is also just vacuuming or just mopping. These are all normal things. What's really important is that this app has a mode called Freo mode. This is also in the name of the device, Narwal Freo Z10 Ultra. Freo mode is basically an automatic mode, which means not that here the machine uses artificial intelligence through the app, because the device is capable of things like recognizing where there is a carpet, for example. It can also detect what type of flooring is in a given area. You can set things like whether you have a pet or not. If you have a pet, where is the pet's resting place? Where is its feeding area? You can set up furniture, carpets, and everything else as well. It can actually recognize a lot of things on its own, which in this case means, for example, that it can identify what a toilet bowl looks like, and based on the toilet bowl, it can determine whether a small room is a toilet, or if it's larger, then it's probably a bathroom. It recognizes the TV cabinet, the coffee table, a bunch of things, double bed, sofa. It can identify all sorts of objects, and it automatically places these items on the map, which you can't see on this map right now. So I'll go back to the other map because I mapped it there. And on the other map, yes, here you can see, for example, that we have a sofa in the living room. In front of the sofa, we have a coffee table, and opposite the coffee table is our TV cabinet with the television. And in this area here is our dining section. You can see here that there is a dining table with exactly 4 chairs, just as it indicated here. In this little area here on the side, you can see this dashed section. This is the area where our cat has its bed, and the vacuum cleaner dock is also here. This was also marked. Next to it, we see the kitchen, which was also marked by them, and we also have a bathroom. In the bathroom, it can't see the bathtub because it's a built-in tub, but it did see the toilet bowl. Yeah, so here we have the toilet bowl. We can see our hallway. You can see it here. These little squares indicate that there is a carpeted section in the hallway here. So it recognized this as well. We have a bedroom, and in the bedroom you can see the double bed. So these are the things it drew in during the mapping process. But if you have a different idea, or if you think there are other things on the map or something is missing, you can edit the map and add extra furniture, carpets, or other items to it. Obviously, the basic features are included here in the map editing as well, so you can split rooms, merge them, or rename them on the map. Here is the furniture management. With furniture management, you can place the bed, table and wardrobe, sofa, and the pet spot. You can see all of this right here, like the feeding bowl, the bed, and all sorts of things. So here you have things like a heater, for example, and a fan, toilet bowl, piano, mirror, bonsai. There are 1,000 different things, and you can place them in the designated spot. Let's say for example, let's put a piano somewhere on the map. Let's place the piano. You can also rotate the piano so you can actually play it, just like that. You can increase or decrease its size, and you can position it as you like. I've placed a piano in the apartment, even though I don't actually have one, but that's fine. The main thing now is for you to see how this works. I'll remove the piano since I don't need it. So the point is, on this interface you're seeing now, you can basically set up everything on the map. Here you can see the carpets, for example, where there is a carpet, but you can also add a carpet if you want. You can set up no-go zones, set up virtual walls. Whoa. So basically all the basic things that every robot vacuum can do, you can do here as well. But in addition, you can also arrange your apartment yourselves and name the rooms. Well, as you've seen, I don't think I need to say more about this. This is actually incredibly awesome. And returning to Freo mode, the point is that the vacuum basically treats the map as something intelligent and dynamic. So you have to imagine it like this. What the machine sees can change with each vacuuming session. Because, for example, your child's shoe might end up in the middle of the room, which wasn't there during the previous vacuuming. And the machine handles these situations completely dynamically, recognizing them. There's a shoe there. It's probably not going to be there all the time. So it just marks on the map that it found a shoe here, but it doesn't, for example, classify it as furniture. So the machine manages the map completely dynamically, and as a result, it also handles the cleaning routes and efficiency in a fully dynamic way. On the map, you can set how many times the vacuum should mop certain rooms, for example, or how many times it should go over these rooms. You can turn off Freo mode. If you leave it on, the system can, for example, perform a much more efficient and stronger cleaning right next to the area where your pets usually sleep or rest. However, if you decide to turn off Freo mode, you can then manually set exactly how strong the cleaning should be for the vacuum in that specific area. What does this mean exactly? You can adjust the vacuuming power in 4 levels. You can set how many times the machine should go over a given surface. During mopping in 2 levels, you can adjust how much water it uses for mopping in 3 levels. In practice, this means that the machine will return to the docking in a station more often and will wash the mop multiple times. Additionally, there is an intensity setting for this cleaning, which determines how densely the machine moves back and forth in an S shape over the given area. Yes, well, that's pretty much how it looks. These are the settings you can adjust here with the Freo mode turned off. If you use the Freo mode, which I actually think is a really great mode and works absolutely well, then it does everything completely automatically. It detects the amount of dirt, senses whether there is a carpet in a given spot or not, whether mopping is needed or not. It identifies the flooring type and adjusts mopping, vacuuming, and everything else accordingly. So it's really great and works well, which is why, for example, on my own machine, actually the predecessor of this one, the Z Ultra, I usually don't bother changing settings at all. The only time I might do anything is if, say, I want it to clean up around the table after lunch. Then I just mark that area and tell it to clean around the dining table. But in all other cases, I always use the Freo mode because it works well for me. And now, let me share a few more interesting things about this app. I've already shown you the mapping feature. There's also a camera mode, and I'm not sure if I can show you the camera mode right now, but I'll give it a try. This is the Z Ultra, so it should be working, but for some reason it doesn't want to work. No matter, I actually recorded a video, so I'll just insert it here. The point is that you can also peek through the camera via the device. Fortunately, only you can peek because it has the proper protection and the right certificate built in, so others can't access your device and spy on you. You can protect the camera with a password, so you're pretty well protected against external intruders and snoopers. However, you can use the vacuum's cameras to see through the app. You can send the vacuum around the apartment. It has a speaker and a microphone, so you can even talk to people in the room. In my opinion, this doesn't make much sense, except that it's incredibly fun, and my kids and I have a great time playing with it, having the vacuum visit mom and talk to her. Let's move on. So, this whole thing sounds really cool. For some reason, I don't have a network connection. Yes, you can see here on this thing that my dust bag is starting to fill up. There are buttons here that let me automatically start the dust bag emptying, as well as the dust container emptying, meaning the emptying of the dust container inside the machine. I can disinfect the dust bag in the machine as well as the mop. This actually means, and this is a very interesting thing, and as far as I know, it's absolutely unique on the market, that the machine can also disinfect the dust bag inside the vacuum cleaner. So, if something wet gets inside, or fungal spores or other things, fungal spores and other things, then basically it can destroy those as well, because it disinfects the dirt inside the dust bag, disinfects the mop, and also dries the mop. Here at the bottom, you can actually see the other two buttons, which relate to the mop. One button is for washing the mop. You can manually wash it again and again by pressing the button. With the other button, you can start drying the mop. You can also stop the mop drying here, by the way. And then we have the next tab. On the next tab, we can see the current status of what's inside. So here, for example, my detergent is still at the normal level, and the dust bag is also at the normal fill level. Yes, the dirty water tank and the clean water tank, I'll need to empty these eventually, so basically that's all there is here. I also want to show you the settings, because there are some interesting things in the settings as well. Here, for example, you can select how many square meters the vacuum should clean before returning to the dock to wash the mop. This basically means that we can set how effective the mopping should be. In any case, keep in mind that if your apartment is large and, for example, you set the vacuum to return to the dock every 8 square meters, it means the machine will travel back and forth a lot between the dock and the rooms, and as a result, the area that can be cleaned on a single battery charge will also decrease. But of course, this isn't really a big problem, since the machine can go back and recharge itself, but if it runs out of battery completely, this can take hours. So just be prepared that if you have a large apartment, you should set aside a whole day for cleaning. So, for example, if you leave for work in the morning, start the machine then, and even if it has to return to the dock very frequently, by the time you get home, the cleaning will be done and the device will have perfectly mopped and vacuumed your apartment. What else is important here? I'll quickly flip through everything. Well, oh yes, here they are. There are some things that honestly just blow my mind, like, for example, there's a do not disturb mode, but the fact that you have to set the vacuum cleaner's altitude above sea level, well, that's pretty wild. And here, if the machine is at an altitude above 2,000 meters, you have to set this. There's a child lock, and of course you can also indicate whether there are pets in the home or family. I should note that when you first launch the app, it asks you these questions, and you have to answer them, and then it customizes the further functions accordingly. So here you need to indicate, for example, that we actually have a cat. So you need to enable the option that you live with a pet, and it will adjust the cleaning intensity accordingly. We've already talked about map management. Basically, this section here shows how many maps you have, which is actually very important. Here you can see that you can still upload 4 more maps in, so you can use this machine even in multi-story buildings. You don't need to buy a separate robot vacuum for each floor, because it can map every level, and once it's mapped, you just need to move the machine to the desired location and start the corresponding map, and it will vacuum there just the same as on any other map. Speaking of mapping, I definitely want to mention that this is also really interesting. When you start the vacuum for the first time, it maps the area so it doesn't clean, but goes around the apartment and checks everything out. You shouldn't take checks everything out literally, as if it's actually looking at things, but it really does examine everything. It doesn't meticulously go around every wall or inspect every single corner. Often it just enters a simply furnished room, then spins around a couple of times and then leaves. Yet interestingly, the room still ends up being mapped. This is obviously thanks to the laser on top. It can measure the distance to the walls and mark what furniture is in the room. And that's all there is to the mapping process. Which basically means that in a smaller apartment, The complete map, including furniture, carpets, the floor plan, and everything else, can be done in as little as 5 or 10 minutes. And once that's done, you can start the cleaning process. Or rather, I would say that's when it's worth starting the cleaning. So now it's time for the test. Of course, I carried out the usual things I always do, but with this vacuum cleaner, I'm using slightly more extreme tests than I typically would with a robot vacuum. Because this machine is, well, an extreme device itself in terms of suction power, mopping ability, and everything else. For the vacuuming test, what I did was scatter cat food, semolina, rice, and flour all over the kitchen, spreading them out densely. And then I sent the vacuum cleaner in to handle it. The result of this extreme test was that the floor was basically left completely clean, free of dust, dirt, and food. It's true that for this, I manually set the suction power to the highest level, and it's also true that I sent the vacuum over the area not just once, but twice. This was necessary for the machine to clean up that extreme amount of dirt, grime, food, and other stuff. But afterwards, everything was perfect. And here, you can see the video as I insert it, so you can see that it really turned out perfect. So it absolutely cleaned up everything without leaving any residue or missing anything. Of course, I didn't just try out the vacuuming, but also the mopping, and obviously I tested that in a very extreme way as well. Because we're still talking about an extreme vacuum cleaner here. I used 3 ingredients: ketchup, sour cream, and mayonnaise. I spread these on the floor of our kitchen, which unsurprisingly wasn't very popular with the family, but I was still hopeful that the machine would somehow fix the problem. I was a bit worried about the mayonnaise since it's quite thick, sticky, and greasy. The sour cream less so, and as for the ketchup, well, in my opinion, that was a relatively easy challenge. I set the machine loose. I didn't use the Freo mode because I was curious to see how it would mop up this extremely smeared mess. And of course, it cleaned up everything. There was absolutely no issue with this. So I set it to use plenty of water to make sure the mop was nice and wet. I sent it over the surface 3 times and it became perfectly spotless. I recorded this as well, and I hope you can see at least somewhat in the footage how the end result turned out. So as for the vacuuming and mopping, honestly, they turned out great, and I really have no complaints at all. Maybe the only thing is that compared to last year's Z Ultra, I don't really see much improvement in this aspect. Except, of course, for what I already mentioned about the outward opening mop, which improves mopping along the edges. Obstacle avoidance is left for last because, as I mentioned, according to the manufacturer, the device now features a more advanced, more powerful system with greater computing capacity. Moreover, it now has 2 1080p cameras working inside. Obstacle detection has improved. It recognizes objects better. So overall, the entire automatic vacuuming function either has improved compared to its predecessor. In my opinion, it hasn't improved. At least I haven't noticed this improvement. I used this machine. Of course, I had it clean the apartment, and I also set up a test track for it in our kitchen, which serves as my test environment. The fact that it hasn't improved doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's good. Because in my opinion, the previous model, the Z Ultra, was also flawless. Obviously, there are obstacles that are too low or too thin for it to detect. But on the current obstacle course, for example, this wasn't the problem. I put out 3 small plastic chairs, and it could see those as well. The problem was rather that these were very lightweight plastic objects, and sometimes the side brush, as it moved and spun, swept the small plastic chair and pushed it back in front of the vacuum kitchen mate. And, for example, in an area here on the side next to the camera, it could no longer see it. So such an error did occur. However, I consider it much more important that, for example, I built a Lego tower out of 2x2 small bricks. As you know, that's a very thin little thing. It avoided this tiny little tower so nicely. It went around the tower so smoothly that I really don't need to explain it any further. I'm trying to show it here in the video. I tried to record it so you can also see how the vacuum performed. I think it's sensational. Of course, I also did the cable test because with older vacuums, it was a big problem that they like to chew up cables. With this machine, that problem obviously no longer exists. I deliberately didn't use a thick cable, but a thin white charging cable, so it would be as inconspicuous and hard to see as possible. But the Z10 Ultra had no trouble recognizing that it was indeed a cable there, and that it needed to avoid it, not run over it, and not get it tangled up. Well, I've pretty much reached the end of what I wanted to say. Once again, I recommend you watch the video from last October as well. You'll probably find some additional information there compared to what I've just told you, even though I talked quite a lot. Also, check out the written article I wrote about it. You'll find a link to the written article in the video description on YouTube. And, well, there's one thing I haven't talked about yet, the price. So, if you want to buy a perfect, flawless machine, at least by today's standards, you'll have to pay a price of over 400,000 forints. That's how much you have to pay for it. I know it's not a small amount, but the technology is there inside. This is a top-of-the-line device, a premium machine in every respect. I think you can see that too. So in a way, I believe this price is justified. With this machine, you now get an incredibly large accessory package, which includes a dust compactor container, dust bag, mop, HEPA filter, extra detergent, and maybe some other things that might not be included elsewhere. Oh, there are also side brushes included, and there's a main brush as well. So they give you a big, complete accessory package as a gift. I know that the accessory package itself costs 60,000 forints. So if you subtract that 60,000 forint accessory package from the 400-something thousand forint total, then it's really not all that terribly expensive. Of course, obviously, it all depends on everyone's individual budget. Well, that's about it. I'll put the two Narwal vacuum cleaner tests here next to me. Go ahead and check those out too. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then finally subscribe to my channel, because way more of you are watching the videos than are actually subscribed, and let's finally reach that 10,000 subscribers mark, because I would be so happy about it. So subscribe and come back, because next time you'll see another really interesting test here. Bye.